What's good, y'all? I'm Jessamine Stanley.
And I'm Ash Phoenix.
In summer 2021, we sold our stuff and started living full-time in our Coleman Rubicon trailer.
We're traveling across the U.S. to get to know ourselves, each other, and the beautiful, complicated, messy country that bore us.
Hit that subscribe and like button to join us as we find out what it really means to find our way home. I love Vermont. I did not know anything about it before we went there. You went to college in Vermont.
Yeah, I went to Goddard College in Plainfield, Vermont, which is occupied land, Abenaki and Wabanaki. Folks lived up in that part of northern Vermont. And so, yeah, I went to college there. It was a non-traditional school in the sense that it was like we were there for residencies and then we would go home and do our work. But I loved being there. It was like summer camp for adults.
Goddard is really fascinating. It's like my dream come true. It's literally like beyond avant-garde. The whole school philosophy is about like doing your own thing essentially and be like teach yourself. Yeah, freedom focused. Absolutely. Yeah. It looks like Louisa May Alcott's gonna walk out of like every building. Like grow up in a house with a wood stove, like you are cold all the time, and so you have that in your attitude. Like I feel like everybody in that part of the country is like hardy, you know, like they're like I wear a vest every day, like I have to. It's so fucking cold. When we got up to that part of the country, it was like late September and we stayed through early October. It was beautiful. We went up to see the leaves change.
Totally.
And I never thought about the fact that Vermont, it was literally Vermont, which is Green Mountain in French. I can imagine going there and being like, yeah, this should be called Green Mountain, because it's literally just like it's a mountain covered in trees. It's gorgeous. And watching the trees change colors was one of my favorite parts of being there.
Because we were there long enough that like we would do the same routes from, you know, our campsite to the grocery store, our campsite to the coffee shop. And every day you would see a little bit different, which was
totally
powerful.
And the colors are so different, like depending on the type of tree, which is something that I had never noticed before.
And we learned while we were there that it's very, very different based on how much rain came through the summer, which that makes sense, but I would have never thought of that before either.
It was so beautiful.
Somebody predicted a particularly beautiful year based on the amount of rain. We learned that when we were eating burgers at a cute little gas station.
It was like an outdoor gastropub, literally. Cute. Oh, other great things about Vermont: maple everything, everything maple, 100% of the time in Vermont. Maple lattes were one of my most favorite
total
things.
Go-to.
Here now too, because we got a lot of maple syrup while we were in Vermont. We got maple syrup for everybody. No, but we also spent time in Massachusetts. Massachusetts is Pocumtuck and Nipmuc indigenous lands is what is now Western Massachusetts.
We visited Greenfield and we visited Northampton.
Montague Book Mill was very cool.
Oh, it was a good trip.
Been a great
it was
trip.
A good one.
Yeah.
So Montague Book Mill is in Montague, Mass. We went there for a work day because we have to work through this whole thing. So on one of the weekdays, we just drove down. I think it was about 2 hours, which is a cute little commute. You know, good company, good podcast or music or whatever. Get ready for the work day, and then just spend the work day in the most beautiful thing. Beautiful house turned bookshop plus cafe, delicious food. The food was dank. We sat outside. It was an incredibly beautiful day. I mean, it was all just incredible.
So part of the reason that we went to southern Vermont, we had found this campground on Hip Camp called Vermont Freedom Adult Campground. Vermont Freedom is a clothing optional campground in Greensboro Bend, Vermont, which I'm from Greensboro, North Carolina. The first campground that we stayed at was in Greensboro. And the last campground that we stayed at before coming back to North Carolina was in Greensboro Bend. That was a personal Easter egg.
Time out.
Yeah.
Why would we want to go to a clothing optional?
Oh my God, because I love clothes, but it's very nice to be naked.
Nice to be naked. I guess I'm intrigued by like who would do that. My thing is like, what is it to be amongst people who are choosing that? It's just about doing your own thing. It's just about not being told sort of like what your limitations are in that way.
Literally.
You have a body, you live in it, so do I. You know, it's sort of like the boring part comes in where it's like, it's boring to have to cover yourself. Clothes aren't boring. It's boring to have to like censor your existence in this way. You know, I can just imagine Vermont in the like tip top of summer. Oh God, it would be such a great place to be naked.
You were trying to get us up there way faster because and I didn't realize really what difference the temperature would make in wanting to be clothing optional all the time. Right. But we were pretty clothing optional.
Yeah, there were a few really nice sunny days. Yeah, we'll be doing yoga outside, which there's not a lot of space in the camper. We pull it off. But all these props, like wall and another wall,
and each other.
Exactly. Anyway, so we're doing yoga outside. Sometimes you're like wearing a hoodie and then you want to take the hoodie off. It's just like, if you kind of finagle, and I don't like to wear a bra, it's just like easier to live a life. You don't have to be worried about those kinds of things. And it was really nice to be able to be naked and not be like self-conscious, because it does bring up so many questions about like, why do I limit myself? Like, why do I dislike my body in all these ways that like when I'm at a clothing optional campground, I'm kind of like, you know what I mean? So what is it? Is it real? Who's it for? So in that way, I just, as an Aries, I love the challenge of being faced with that stuff. I also like love the human form. I love looking at other people's naked bodies.
You know what? I really appreciate your honesty about that, because like I totally was looking at everybody and then trying to tell myself that I wasn't. Wow. That's so intense.
Totally.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I dug that part of it. And just like also just the reflection on what comes up when I see people. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And like, why am I judging people in certain ways, for instance? Mm-hmm. So, oh man, it's just all very there. So I loved that for it too. Mm-hmm. It was cool because I was in my car and, and I didn't have my keys, so I couldn't roll down the windows, and I didn't want to like, whatever. So I just got to take my shirt off and I was like, yes, so nice. It just feels better. It was cool. So I feel like it was a really liberating experience. And I was kind of bummed to like return to the real world in that way.
No, totally. The other thing that I loved about Vermont Freedom is that they had hot tubs just like randomly placed around the campground, and you could just get in them whenever, wherever. Like, it was amazing.
So chill. I'm not even put on clothes. It's so chill. The other thing is like people who are clothing optional, who are like walking around naked in public, basically, they're dancing to the beat of a different drum. This is like back to my point of like, why would you pick that? I just like learning about and being around people who are like intentionally not like self-conscious in that way.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to worry with that right now. I'm going to worry with something else.
Yeah. At Vermont Freedom, we met some really cool people. It was predominantly older gay white men.
Yep.
And us. I love that part of it so much. It was like a bunch of gay uncles. They had a Halloween party like the first weekend of October, and we hung out. We got there like at the very, very end. We made last minute costumes. I made you a toga costume.
Out of our bed sheet.
And then I was like, I guess I just took the other sheet, like wrapped it around. I was like, let's just go.
You had the fitted sheet and I had the top sheet.
Yeah. A lot of campgrounds, they'll have like, it'll be like a full slate of events. Like, let's say that we go to a KOA, for example, and we're like, oh, there's an events list. Let's look at the events list. The events are going to be like, for people who are 12 and under.
Rock.
Literally, it's going to be like, we're making fucking lanyards. Like, you know what I mean? There's free ice cream by the dog park.
And we're going to be petting bald eagles.
There's for sure bald eagle petting gonna happen.
So to be extremely clear, this is an adult only campground. So.
Yeah. So anyway,
the event that she's talking about, the adult Halloween party, is the only thing. There was no child party at the adult only nudist.
That's exactly right. We went down though and we met like, I can't remember anybody's name, but we like hung out. They had all these Jello shots and champagne, like sparkling wine. I remember because I jacked a bottle and then brought it onto the camper, and then it just stayed in the camper till like we were cleaning out the fridge in North Carolina, and I was like, we're not gonna drink this, Andre. But afterwards there was a little after party at one of the guys. They all had the best RVs, man. They gave me big rig inspiration, like made me want us to eventually get some kind of class A like that, just like for when we're older, just like after some time has passed, when you're like wanting to have a bigger ride.
You toots.
I'm really looking forward to going back there. It made me want to set like a seasonal schedule where we are in New England in the fall, and really like specifically, I would go other places, but definitely back to Vermont Freedom. And when we started this trip, we said that there were like 8 things that we were going to try to do in every state. I feel like our whole understanding of what we're doing has evolved so much since
as
then.
It should. As you're really reflecting on what it is you're doing.
Definitely. But we did say that we wanted to find out what indigenous land we're on, and we wanted to find a natural body of water and jump in it.
Did we do that in Vermont?
In Vermont, we went to Winhall Brook, the campground, which is on Winhall Brook, the water. And I mean, it was too cold to be like jumping in anything, but me and Baby Shark definitely stood on the edge of it. I don't think we hiked in Vermont. Did we hike in Vermont?
I did a little hiking just while I was making phone calls and stuff around the campsite.
Literally did, definitely did. Yeah, for sure. I forgot about that. Yeah. We have seen so many sunrises and sunsets, like literally everywhere that we've been.
And they're magnificent. And I think that like really the deal is that we are in a natural rhythm of being around for the sunrise and sunsets. That like when you live outdoors, sometimes you're up early. Also, all of our traveling means that we have to sync up with our teams. The easiest way to do that is just be up as early as the earliest one of them. So that's been really amazing just to find ourselves aligned with the way the sun rises. And then we're just like kind of out here. And so when the sun is setting, you're just like catching it, you know, because we're not watching TV.
That's another thing. We're like really not watching anything, or like I haven't seen that much stuff.
A lot of connectivity issues, but also just like once you're out of the habit of it, it's kind of like, is that what I want to do with my evening, you know?
Yeah, I do still like to stream shit, but
I do.
Yeah, but it just happens less. I feel like we definitely eat McDonald's in like every state that we've been in. No one else does egg McMuffins, like not the way that they do them.
We have some great welcome signs from New England.
Oh yeah, no, totally. There are more states that we have the welcome sign than not.
So grits is just
grits is not a thing outside of the South, I think.
But for Vermont, we did eat the most iconic food, which was maple syrup.
Definitely.
And we ate a lot of it.
Yes.
And we were grateful. So we're going to go back in time a little bit.
When we got to Northern Vermont, we got a job. It's our first time ever doing a shoot together where we are both going to be the on-set talent, like for a very large brand.
Yeah, it was a big deal. I mean, so it was in New York City. We left our camper at Vermont Freedom.
It's our first time ever doing that.
Which people do. So we looked it up. We were like, what do we do if we have to fly away? And we looked at people who are like, you just lock it up and head out. And so I'm like, oh, like you're home.
It's like your house.
So we did that. We flew to New York from Burlington Airport.
On the way back, though, we were going to fly out of Newark. And then on the way to the airport, the flight got canceled. And the flights from anything to and from Burlington Airport, it was like
minimal.
Yeah, there's just not that many flights. And so the next flight was going to be like, maybe it was later that day. It might have been the next day or like routed through some place. But so we were like in the car on the way to the airport when this happened. And when we got to the airport, we were like, let's just rent a rental car and drive back to Burlington. And that was I had so much fun on that drive. We drove through the Berkshires, stopped for weed in the Berkshires. We went to Dakin Farms, which is this sugar shack where they process maple syrup in northern Vermont. And they had like the best Cabot Creamery or Cabot Farms or whatever the fuck it's called, boxed macaroni and cheese that is so dank. And I fuck with macaroni and cheese. I consider myself a macaroni and cheese aficionado. Like It is a personal belief system, macaroni and cheese.
And I benefit. Privilege.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe no Black people were involved in the making of this macaroni and cheese. And so that was also like high key what was so impressive to me about this. It was so good. And I was like, this white people macaroni and cheese?
I think it's a great segue though into the fact that like the thing that was hardest about living in Western Mass, being from like in a pretty multiracial family and then living in really multiracial places growing up.
What happened?
There were no Black people.
There were no Black people. There were some Black people in like north central Pennsylvania. But the further north we got, and once we were out of New York State, I was counting Black people. I don't remember seeing any, especially now being at a campground where we're like, there's all kinds of people here. Yeah. This is amazing. I'm thinking back to those Vermont campgrounds and I'm like, no, it was only white people. And part of that also is because when we got to Vermont, my skin started acting so sketchy. Totally. And granted, like, I think I was not drinking as much water as I could have been, but my lips started to inflate.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You remember? It was so sketchy. Like my body was freaking out. And I was like, that's why there's no Black people up here, because the temperature up there is not meant for melanin.
Get out kind of.
It was deep get out vibes. Deep get out vibes for sure. There were just like a lot of guns and stuff. There was a lot going on up there.
Scary. Yeah, I felt right at home. I'll be honest.
I know you did. Oh, I know you did. Oh my God.
It's a thing.
Fucking white people land. It literally was. Oh my God. Okay, no, I wanted to say that part of our travels is like my favorite part, when we get taken off track. And it happens all the time for different reasons. Totally. Like our work life, like if we did not have mobile businesses that require that kind of thing of like going to a job.
Yeah.
I think that this trip would be a lot more straightforward. It would be a lot more like, let's get the atlas out and plan weeks in advance where we're going to be. But we have to stay like on the drop of a dime because we might have to be in this place or that place or whatever. It's really exciting and fun, I think. And like before, when big things would happen and it's like, oh, you have to pivot, you have to reroute. It's like you come back to the same physical place. And like, I think it's just different. Now we're at this place where like we have to find home together in each other. We have to find home in ourselves. I love our house so much.
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
It's so good. We just not that long ago were parked somewhere where some kids were shouting at us, "You're homeless! You're homeless!" And we were like, I mean, like kind of, but also like not at all. Right. And like, it's just been this really cool thing about like learning what it is to be home and what it is to find home in ourselves and with each other.
That was Vermont. We had a great time.
We have been a lot of places and we're going to go a lot more. Drop in the comments your favorite place to visit, or if you've been to Vermont, anything that stood out for you there. If you've had Dakin Farms macaroni and cheese, did it change your life? Are you a better person for it? Subscribe, follow along in our journey, and we'll be back soon.
Catch you later.
Bye. How come we can't bring the giraffe?
It's too much.
Why is it too much?
Too big.
It's Baby Shark's best friend.
Yeah, he'll see him when he gets back. It's not coming.
Look at his face. He wants it.
He doesn't. It's not coming.
He does.
Absolutely not.
Let's just try it.
It's not coming.
All right. Yeah, see, he's cozy.
No, baby, he cannot breathe. It's not happening. No, there's not enough space. I'm really putting my foot down. There's not enough room.
Is he mad?
No, he's just kind of like, I don't love it.
I mean, it's a lot.
We all gotta grow.
I agree.